Welcome to movie 3. As you see on the screen, I have the clicky copy already on, and if I turn it off, you're going to see that I do have the two highlights here for the face. What I want to do is to designate, just for now, and be able to find my highlight layers really fast. And I may move those up to the top, I don't know. But I'm going to color them a different color so I can kind of see them in the layer palette. So I'm going to right hand click. I'm going to put a color on them just so I can designate where they are quickly visually in the layer palette, and I'll save the file. What I want to do is to add to that the highlight layer that is over here on the mouth. And I've already drawn that little shape right there, and you can see it right here. So I'll zoom in and you can see it. I'll take the P key and I'll click on it. Okay, so I just want to come back with that highlight layer, and I want to use the same highlight color that is inherent in the rest of the highlights. So what I'm going to do is first hit the B key, and I'll grab my highlight color that is the main highlight color, and I'll use that, and then I'll do it the same exact way I've done all the rest of them, which is to lay it in there hard and Gaussian blur it, and then eliminate a lot of it or all of it, and then bring whatever I need back, which is actually Gaussian blur to the most of it, layer mask to the least of it. So let me turn off that, which is the clicky copy, and let's put this on the screen so I can at least see the highlight over here. Now sometimes I like to bring the reference layer closer to the image, okay, so I can zoom in. So I'm going to hit the V key and right hand click to layer 17, and although I should probably name that layer clicky, I'll go small clicky with detail. And then I'm going to, in the V key, which is the move tool, I'll right hand click again and I'll put it over here, and then I'll use the layer mask again to get rid of the rest of this. So I'm going to click on the layer mask, hit the B key, paint in black, and definitely get rid of this. I should change it from 8 on the flow. It's just getting in the way, but that's okay. I don't care. I'm fine. So I'm going to click back to the highlight that I actually wanted to put in there. So I'm going to make a new highlight layer, okay, and I'm going to grab this upper highlights and hit Command C. I'll make a new layer right there, and I'll hit Command V, and I'll put in here number 2, just so I have more highlight layers. And I'm going to color it orange so I know that it's part of the highlight. So I'm going to make a selection of it, and I won't Gaussian blur it. I'm sorry, I won't add a feather to it. I'm just going to zoom in so I can see the highlight that I'm searching for right there. And it needs to have darker material around it, but then I'll just be able to paint it underneath that. So it won't hurt. What I'm putting in there won't hurt. I've just backed off a little bit. So with the color already in the foreground color, I'm going to hit Command H and then just hit Option Delete so you can see it go in. Now, let's deselect it and add a layer mask to it. But click back on the image and let's Gaussian blur it. Now I'm going to Gaussian blur it to about 3 pixels. So let's go to the Gaussian blur filter and let's leave it on 3 pixels in this case, or somewhere around where Gaussian blur tells me it's good. Probably more than 3 pixels now. Let me move this over so I can see what I'm looking at. And now it's more like 9 pixels. But I didn't have to do it. Gaussian blur did it for me. So it just showed me. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is click on the layer mask, hit the B key, make my brush smaller, and we're going to start to eliminate part of it on this side. And then I'm going to make the brush even smaller, and I'm going to fuzz it more on that side. Now I'm only taking, as I said before many times, when you're painting at 8%, it's a non-destructive thing, because if I go too far, which I just did, I just hit the X key and I can put some back on. Now let's zoom it out. Let's turn off this little clicky copy here, and let's see what that looks like with the main clicky copy on as I go back and forth. Now I like what I've done. I think what I've done is really beautiful, but it needs to go darker underneath, which means if I'm working in layers, that's a really easy process to do. So I said before that I wanted to work on the eye darknesses, which are one of the next things I'm going to do. But now that I see this highlight here, I want to bring back that highlight that was on the top of the mouth. Since I already have the right cheek highlight there, I'm simply going to make a selection of that, feather it, which is Shift F6 by about 3 pixels, hide it, and then click on the same layer that it was on. So I'll turn off this. I will turn on, I might have to, I want to bring this back, but now that is in the way. You follow what I'm saying? So I just have to redo the selection. So I'm going to Command D the selection. You have to, if you move something in Photoshop, you cannot have a selection activated or it'll cut it or do other things to it. So I'm going to hit the V key, go right to that image and move it back over here a little bit higher, so I can now put both of these, both of these on the screen, and not only click back and forth between the clicky copy, but have it visually in front of me. The reason I click back and forth again, just to repeat myself, is that I need the placement in the right place. So not only does, let me click this back on, but now let me Command click that to show you that it is in the right place. Again, let's inverse it. Okay, again let's go Shift F6 and add the 3 pixel feather, and again let's hit Command H to hide it. Now all I have to do is click to the layer mask, turn this off, which is the clicky copy, make my brush bigger, and now start to just identify where that is. Now let me click here to show you that where I'm painting is right there. Now I've given it a couple of little things right there, and I actually was painting white on the layer mask, which was the wrong thing to do. Okay, so I want to Command Z that back, and I want to hit the X key, and I actually want to take more of that away. Okay, now I may need to Gaussian blur that feather. I can already tell by just painting just a little bit. If you see where I'm painting back and forth, I didn't put enough feather on that. Okay, so I'm going to click off the clicky copy. I'm going to hit Command Z to put that back, then Option or Alt Control Z or Command Option Z to go back in history. Then I'm going to hit Shift F6 and I'm going to give it more like a 6 pixel feather. Now I'm going to hit Command H. Now I'm going to paint white back in that area, and it's got a real nice feel there. Now let's turn this back on and off and paint white on the black on the layer mask until that gets to look right in that area, and I'm now getting that back correctly. So you can see how well I'm doing. I now need to back off more tone here on that dark brown. Let me show you, see? So now I need to deselect the selection, all right? Deselect it. Let me make the brush bigger, and let me remove some more tone from this, which is this, meaning this layer, and now you can see just how well that's actually turning out and how well that's actually turning out in that area. So let me paint a little bit more and taking it off like this, especially taking it off here in the chin area. Let's now turn this back on. There, see how I'm now bringing back the chin area, which is this lightness on the chin that I'm just showing you right here. And then I can start getting even more refined with it. Now, I think I want to bring it back a little bit more, which means I click back on the layer mask, Command click that selection, Shift F6 it. See, I just need to hit the return key and hit Command H. Now I can actually lighten up a little bit more by painting black on the layer mask right there. And I am, whoops, doggone it. I am, let me make sure I'm actually in the, I have to hit Command H to see, I didn't inverse it. That's my mistake. I was painting, and I told you I make mistakes. I was painting on this side. I want to paint on that side. So I need to Command Shift I it, then hit Command H. Then I am now I am painting actually on the outside of it, and I'm further lightening that up here by bringing that back. So let me take this back. Now if I need to at this point, since I'm starting to work the small detail, I can actually zoom in and grab that color right here, and instead of painting on a layer mask, I can actually put another layer above that and use this to actually enhance the color. Okay, so I'm still in Command H, which means I'm still having a selection activated, which means I'm now going to go to the clicky copy, make my brush nice and small, and I'm actually going to paint a little bit right using this as my guide right on that layer, and now I have that beautifully done. Is it too strong? Yes. That's what a layer mask is for, and that's what Gaussian blur is for. So I deselect. Let's go back to here. Let's look at this one. Let's Gaussian blur that just a little bit, and this is the technique you use on every single shape. So I can Gaussian blur it a lot, which is stupid, and I can Gaussian blur it a little. It needs just a little bit. So let me come in, let me hit preview and see that that's a sharp edge, a little bit more soft, meaning more Gaussian blur, which I think is pretty. And now if I add a layer mask to that, or I reduce the opacity of it, I'm good to go. So I'm going to just use the layer mask. I have to click on the layer mask, and if you look over here in the foreground color, whatever I did in the last minute or two turned what was supposed to be black into gray, so I need to re-put it back in black. You have to keep your eye over here on the foreground and background color, because I want to deselect the selection, and now I want to minimize what I've done. And look at how nice I'm actually making that the right tone, and if I click back and forth, look at how close I actually am. Okay, so now what I should do is come in from the other side with another layer and paint that dark. Now that dark is getting a little bit green in tone. I'll put it in, but I don't trust it. But that's what the picture is giving me. Of course, I have artist license. So I'm going to, before I click away from this, I'm going to take that highlight color and put it down here in the swatches. I need to bring this over so you can see that on my other screen there was this here. And if I want to, I can name that a color. I don't really need to, but because my eye can tell it's a highlight color, so I'll put in here highlight number 2 or whatever. I don't know. Just so I know that in my swatches, look at, that's highlight number 2. See? So let me hit Command S to save the file. And as I didn't do yesterday, I need to go to Edit, Purge All about every 3 or 4 saves. So I'm now ready for the next thing. Now let me see what this layer is. Okay, so this layer 17 is the highlight below the mouth. And I'll go back and start to rename layers and, you know, be a better boy about renaming layers. But now let's take number 18 and let's go the dark below mouth. Save the file. And now let's go back to the selection. So let me turn on the clicky copy. Let's go back to the selection. And that is just about right. I really need to alter this. This needs to actually come up a little bit more into the mouth, and let me move this point a little farther over like this. I think that's going to be better. And instead of filling an entire layer with that color, I'm going to do paint in here. Okay, so I'm going to make a selection out of that, and then I'm going to, as I said before, with the B key, I'm going to grab the color, which I already did, and I'm on the correct layer. Whoa, did I mess up that typing? I put in here, I didn't, I hit the Y key. Okay, so now that's correct. Now I'm going to feather this automatically, and then I'll help the feather in a minute. So let's go to Select, Modify, Feather. Let's add about a 4-pixel or 5-pixel feather to that already. And then with this activated, I'm going to blast it in here, what I call blasting it in here. So let's click to the layer, make sure the layer is on in visibility. And now let's again grab the same color, and then I'm going to make the brush smaller. Now look what I'm going to do. I'm just going to paint kind of arbitrarily around that pixel right there. Now I'm going to look and see how intense I made it, which I already know is pretty darn intense. Okay, I really blasted it in there. But again, okay, that's what a layer mask is for. So let's get back on it a little bit so I can kind of judge it with the one that's up above right over here. Let me deselect it, and now let's look and see, and now let's marry that together with what it needs to be. I obviously need to Gaussian blur it a little bit more and then remove it with a what? With a layer mask. So with no selection activated, with me clicked on the image part of the layer, not the layer mask. Let's go back to the blur. Let's blur it. Gosh, that 12 was just about right, wasn't it? I think it was right. Now let's click OK. And gosh, I was going to say two things there, but I don't want to yet. One of them was going to be that I could alter the hue and tone with hue and saturation. Okay, but I'm going to minimize it. So I'm going to come in here like this and minimize it. I'm going to come underneath it with a smaller brush like this. Whoops. I was painting on the layer and I wasn't removing with a layer mask. So just I Option Command Z back a couple times, and I'm going to click to the layer mask, and now silly me is going to remove it, but I'll use this to remove it with. So you see how if I come on this angle right here and I'm painting in black, I'm actually removing it, and it actually comes up and down a little bit right there. Then I'm going to remove it this way. Now let's see how I did. So now I've given it a little bit of that extra feel that it needs to have. Now let me make the brush bigger and back off on it entirely. So I'm just clicking it until I feel that that's right. Now I need to add more of this tone as it's coming around the cheek, but this is what's going to tell me if I have it right. Okay, I've come up a little too high on this side, so let's minimize it some more. And I've come up a little too high on that side. So now let's take this away. Back and forth and clicky, the clicky copy, hence the name clicky copy. So now I've started to get my little details in right. Again, it will not look good until it is 75% completed. Now, do you have the ability to look at this when I click this on? Do you have the ability to look at it without seeing the mouth? If you don't yet, then use this one. Now I'm going past this one and I'm using a mixture of this one and this one because I'm kind of already where I want to be on this one here. Okay, so I'm going to put these two little ones up on top, so I keep on going like this, and you can see just how I'm actually going back and forth between them. So I think I want to use this one from now on as my clicky copy, at least for the time being. Now, I'm going to hit the V key, right-hand click on this one, and move it back over away from the face so I can continue on my path, on what I need to do. So, now that I've started to get that, my decision is to go in and do the eye darks and around the lips. Okay, so let's start the process of doing I'm thinking, it doesn't really matter if I do the eye darks. I've actually said the nose area here and the eye darks. So I have a nose area dark and an eye dark, if you see what I'm clicking to, because I didn't know which one I wanted to do first. It really doesn't matter. I think I'm going to do the nose dark, but I don't have a path for it. So I'm going to start to draw the path out. Now what I want to do is to get kind of definitive on where that dark is supposed to be. Now this dark is underneath the top of this nose right there. So you can see that the dark is actually contained. Now, if I zoom in on this, I know that there isn't a line between here and here, but I can remove whatever hard line on this section right there with a layer mask. So I'm actually going to draw this up like this. I'm actually going to come around like this and come around the nostril like that, and I'm going to get it really clean. I mean, I want to use my drawing capability to lay that in there. Now, I know I haven't mentioned it before, but there are things you can do to selections that subtract a selection from another selection, and so on and so on and so on. Now, I'm going to back off on this, and then I'm going to kind of describe to you what I'm going to do here. So if I back off on this, I see a bit of a darkness which comes down around this way, comes down around her mouth like this, and then actually comes back up. Now, I'm just to not influence it there, I'm going to come around the mouth like this. I'm going to come around the mouth like that. Then I'm going to come back right over to where the shadow actually comes back like this. And I think that I've drawn that fairly accurate to what it needs to be. Whoops. let me just click this one point so I can grab the handlebar and pull it out, and let me move this over. Now that's a pretty good definitive dark. There's a but. Let me call it nose area dark 1. Let me cancel this and let me say Command C on this, double click this and hit Command V, and now I want to, as slow as I need to go, I am going to do a couple extra paths that are going to work with this path. Now if I hold the Command or Control key, I can turn off this path. Now what I want to do is I can see an extra dark, watch this, I can see an extra dark right here. Look at how it comes in like this. Look at that, right down to here. Now I want this to be this area too, so I'm just going to come around really large like this. That is really the only part of that I really cared about. Now I'm going to go like this, double click it, hit Command V, and put a number 2 in there. Now I want to hold the Control or Command key and deselect it. Now let's go do this one. So now this is the cleft of the mouth. Look at how I'm coming around like this, coming around like that. It actually bends back in and comes up like this. Now I'm going to come up like that. Now I'm going to give you a little lesson. Let me double click it and hit Command V and hit the delete and number 3. And then I'm going to save the file in case it quits on me. And I'm going to purge before I continue. So let me purge. Okay. Let me go back to the main selection. When I lay this value in right here, I'm of course going to have to Gaussian blur it quite a bit on this side, and then almost delete all the tone on this side, because if I click away from that, you can see this just blends into her cheek. Okay. This dark tone comes after this tone. So the first tone that goes all the way across is going to be this tone right here. Now there's a couple of things I want to show you. I want to Command click on that area. I want to show you this one overlapping it. So can you see how there's an overlap here? Now if I hold on this, please watch what happens. If I hold the Control key or the Command key, add the Alt or Option key to it, and the Shift key, an X appears right inside that little hand over there, and it lets me intersect that area. Actually, what I needed to do was to make sure it was on the right thing. So that should have intersected that area. That is going to tell me that there is a mistake there. It's not going to be a subtraction. Nope. I have to fix something. If I take, I'm going to explain it to you, and I just discovered that on my machine I have a mistake. It's not a mistake, it's just that the paths are not the right property. Okay, if I have this large path and I click back on this path, the area between them is called an intersection, because this path here goes all the way around. This path here comes around where I'm actually drawing. So I want the area between them. I should be able to go Command, Option, Shift, and click and get that path. Now I should have been able to do that in the opposite manner. So I should have been able to click on this one and do that one. Now let me see what the problem is here. Maybe I'm not thinking correctly. Oh, I was clicking the wrong one. I apologize. Okay, there wasn't a mistake, but now that that was funny. Okay, I was supposed to click on this one and this one together, and I was using this little one here, okay, which is that one where the cleft of the mouth is. Oh my goodness. But I do want, that brought up something that I want to show you. All of these paths here could be on combine, which means add, or intersect. So I want to actually click on that path, select that path, select that path, and for this to work correctly, this being, look up here, combine, subtract, intersect, and exclude, I need to make sure that by property all of these are on exclude. So I click exclude. If they were on combine, I should change them. Now please watch the icon over here to the left. If I can change the property of this by default. I can go up to subtract And did you see how now it turns to be white on the outside and dark on the inside? Now you know in Photoshop that black eliminates, white retains. So instead of me actually painting inside that little tiny shape that I had right here, I'd be painting on the outside because that's where white retains. White is active. Okay, so I'm going to go back to that selection and I'm going to put it on either combine, see how it fixed itself, or more correctly, exclude. So I'm going to make sure this one, by marqueing and making the points dark or selected, I'm going to make sure that one is on exclude, which it is. I'm going to click on this one and I'm going to marquee it and make sure it is on exclude. Now I could have done that all at one time. Now I know my properties are working correctly. Now let me go back to what I was talking about before, and I'm sorry this is taking so long, but this is important because you don't want to draw the same line of something twice. Let me make my point. I don't want to draw the bottom line of this nose twice. So when it comes to doing this dark area here or this dark area from here over, I don't want to redraw that line or the line of the mouth. Do you understand? So I'm going to make a selection of the first one, show you the second one, and hold Command Option Shift or Control Alt Shift and intersect it. Now do you see how I only have that side correctly done? Now, if I wanted to, do you see this little section right there of the nose? So if I wanted to zoom in and only paint from this point down, I could find my nose area, which I had right here, see that? Or this one right there, and I could subtract this one from this selection. So subtract is to hold the Command or Control key and to hold Alt or Option. So I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to go Command Option and subtract it. Now do you see how I've made a very customized selection of that area? Whoops, I was in the pen tool. I have to go here. Now, I don't want to have to do all that again. That was like 3 different subtractions. So I'm going to Command Z back and Option Command Z back and put it back here, and I'm going to go up to Select and save my selection as my nose area on the left, which is really her right, but I'm going to say on the left. Now let me show you what I'm typing in. I'm typing in this window. Nose area left, number 1. Now, it appears in channels. Do you see it down here in channels? That is where I store saved selections. Now let's subtract this. You see what I'm circling? Let's subtract this out of the selection. So I find the shape that I want, which isn't that shape, it's that shape. And now I hold Command and Option or Control and Alt and I subtract it. Now let's go to Select and Save Selection and call it, I should have just copied that, Nose Area, I don't know how to spell area, A-R-E-A, left, number 2. Now look what I have in channels. I have started to gather my specialized selections. If you don't understand, rewind this and listen to it, because this is one of the most valuable things Photoshop has to offer. You can combine, subtract, intersect, or exclude paths. This is a path palette. Okay, so you can do that. You can take paths and intersect them from channels, or you can take paths and intersect or exclude them from images on layers, or you can do images on layers and combine, add, subtract, or intersect shapes on channels. So all 3 work to make selections from, or all 3 work to modify selections. So I spent time doing that one, and I don't know how long this movie has gone, but I think I'm going to go on before I actually start this process to movie number 4, and I'll start doing the nose and the eye darks on movie number 4. Perhaps before I do that, I'll just lay this in first. So I'm going to go to my nose area 1, I'm going to deselect, I'm going to add 2 more layers and clip them to there. And I'm going to double click nose area 1 and hit Command C, double click layer 17, hit Command V, delete number 2, go to here, Command V, delete number 3. Now I'm clicking back to nose area number 1. This is going to further enhance the color, so I need to go to the B key and grab my color, and it's the lightest of the darkest. Did you understand what I said there? So we click the lightest of the darkest. And I'm going to go to the nose area 1 and make a selection of it. Now I'm going to click with this off, go back to here, and now let's look at how much the color goes in. So I'm hitting Command H so you don't have to see the selection, but I've grabbed that color. See where I'm pointing on her little lip, and I'm going to hit Option Delete. Now that is the true color of what is in that area. All right, I kind of want to back off on this. I want to redo it, Command Z, and I'm going to grab the bluer tone over here. Now I'm going to hit Option Delete, and that is really the color of this area right there. So you got to trust what you trust. All right, now let's remove what we need and Gaussian blur what we need. So let's deselect it, add our layer mask, and go through the process every single time of what you need to do. So I'm going to, look what I'm pointing to, I'm going to Gaussian blur it for here, or let me turn on the clicky copy. I want to Gaussian blur it for here. So that's at least 3 to 4 to 5 pixels. So let me turn this off. Let me make sure I'm on the image part of the layer. Let's go to filter and do the same Gaussian blurring that we have here. So this is on 12, which is a little bit too much. And I'm good to go right there. Now I'm going to click on the layer mask, and I'm going to remove the heavy light tone that's right here. I like what's happened on the right hand side, but not on the left hand side. So let's take this away because I don't need it. Now look at how quickly that now turned into something that's working. Okay, I like the color. Click your clicky copy back and forth, and look at how the color is totally working. Let's remove, excuse me, whoops, I clicked that off. I wanted to click this off. Let's remove a little bit of that and make it somewhat transparent. Okay, that's absolutely gorgeous. All right, now let's click to number 2, and let's do the darkness on this side. So with the selection active, remember it's not going to look good until it's 75% completed. So I want to go to my channel and make my selection of that side. Did you see what I did? Now let's turn this on and make sure I'm doing the right thing. So I now want to grab this value with the B key. Boom. We're going to lay it in hard, Gaussian blur it, and remove it with a layer mask. Does that sound familiar? Make sure you're not clicking Brian a freckle. Okay, so let's turn this off. Let's hit Command H so you can see it, and Option Delete so you can see that go in. Now let's deselect it. Trust the formula. Turn on this until you see that you have it where it needs to be. It's just about perfect. You're going to have to help the cheek color over here with an above layer in a little while. But what do? We add the layer mask. We click back to the image. We deselect to triple check that we deselected. We go to the blur. We do our thing. We leave it on. You know what? I canceled it because I got to turn off the clicky copy. I'm very sorry. So let's go back to Gaussian blur. And now I'm going to leave that. Look over here. I'm pointing. Look over here. I'm going to try to find the right tool to point with. Right here is where I want that to be a little bit more Gaussian blurred. This is still too sharp. So let's go up. That's now not enough. So it's between 10 and 20. So it's somewhere in that neighborhood right there. And I think I'm good. Now let's turn the clicky copy on and off and look at how pretty that is. Can go a slightly bit darker, but I'm okay with that. So now we click to the layer mask, and I want to only take away the bottom on this, making my brush a tiny bit smaller. I just want to remove a little bit of that and then just gently kick that in. Now let's turn on the clicky copy really quick and see what we have. See how now the color is starting to work correctly. I'm not talking about the darks from the nose down. Those are the final details that'll really pull this together. Now let's do the cleft. I want to describe to you what the cleft is. It's a dark that goes all the way through, and you remove it down to this part. Do you understand what I just said? So the cleft is a darkness from all the way through. So you paint through it, and you bring this back with the layer mask, since the color I'm pointing to here is already there. So see how that color is already pretty much there? The one that is right where that little hole was, right where I just pointed. Now let's grab that color right here. Let's find the cleft part, which is right, not that one, it's this one. It's not that one. I haven't even made it yet. So I have to deselect. I have to go back to my nose area. I have to find that little cleft part. You see it right there? I'm going to intersect it so the shape that I want is right here. Do you follow what I'm saying? Then I'll save it as a selection. And so let me make sure I'm on the right thing. So I go Command Option Shift or Control Alt Shift. Now look at how I've cut this off exactly the way that I want. I'm going to quickly save it as nose or lip cleft. So I'll just call it nose area 3. Save selection. I don't even know what to call it. Let's just call it cleft for above the mouth. I hope I spelled cleft right. So again, there's no difference here, but now I need to have, I'm going to put in a brand new layer that we're also going to call the cleft. And I should check the spelling, but this is not a spelling class, this is a Photoshop class. So I'm going to hit Command H so I don't have to see the selection. I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to go up and show you what it's going to look like. Now let me just enlarge it so we can see. Whoops, oh my gosh. So let me go down. I just want to get it right there. Okay, now let me hit Option Delete, and there's the cleft. Now let's deselect. Let's take the cleft, turn on the clicky copy, and let's do what? So I click, here's the cleft right there. I can add the layer mask now or in a minute. In fact, I'll add it in a minute. I usually add it now, but I'll add it in a minute. So let's blur it. Let's see if that's too destructive. I think that is too destructive at 16. So let's come back to here because we can help it here, meaning about 10. So I'm at 9.9. I'm good. Now, let's add the layer mask. Now, we're already selected on the layer mask, so let me zoom in. Okay, now let's use this being the clicky copy to tell me where I'm going. Don't worry about this darkness which is coming down from the bottom of the nose to the lip. I'll put that in over top of everything and it will melt everything together if you follow what I mean. So let's go like this. Let's you know what? This is the time that I have to show you something again. I want a copy of this nose to be right by it, so when I enlarge it, I have it. Okay, so I actually take the time to click up to certain things like this, click on it, hit the M for marquee. Let's go grab the nose area, just the nose area right here. Let's hit a Command J. Now I may throw this away in a minute, but I'm hitting the V key and I'm going to move that right here. See how neat that was? Now let's click back to the cleft and click back to the layer mask. Now I can zoom in. This is something that I'm going to remove in a few minutes, but I now can do a myriad of things. I can take my paintbrush, make it smaller. Let's start to bring back this little light thing. So I can either do it with a path or I can freehand it. So I'm going to come in here since it's a simple shape and I'm going to just start taking it away. I'm on the layer mask, but I'm not painting with black. My eye went right to here, and for some reason, again, I probably will find out, but I'm talking and trying to do this at the same time. So what I'm trying to say is I didn't see that the black was eliminated from the foreground color, but I'm removing this with a few strokes. Now let's go see how I'm looking. I think that's looking nice and clean. Let me make the brush a little bit smaller and come up with it. Now I want to make sure I'm coming up with it just the way that the reality of that is. Now, I've removed a little too much of it, but it's no big deal, and you tell me why. Because I can hit the X key and do what? I can come on this side of it, and I can actually put it back with an X key back. So see how I'm making it thinner, and I'm making it just what it needs to be. Now, I'm going to make the brush bigger, hit the X key back to black, and I'm going to remove some of the color from right here. So the color is now going away here. I'm going to soften it right here, and I'm going to soften this edge right here. Now I need to get darker with it, and remember, it's not going to look good till it's 75% completed. So we need to now put in some darks. We need to go in and influence what we have. So I'm going to have to do a nose area 3, which is going to help. And I'm first going to do it darker from here down. Look what I said, darker from here down, not the little darknesses for the nostrils, but the darkness that's right underneath it. bring it down, then do this darkness right there, and it'll tie everything together. Then I probably should do a little bit more darkness here. So it could actually need 3 more layers, and that's what I'm going to do on the new movie. I'm going to go Command C on this. I'll click to this and then I'll stop the movie. Command V number 4. Not 34, Brian, I'm sorry. Okay, and Command V delete number 5, and whoops, not equal 5, just 5. And now I'm good. So now I'm going to get to 3. So it's going to take me 3 layers to actually do all these darks from the nose down. Here's what this looks like so far. It's not looking good, but it is not to 75% completed. Okay, and I don't have the lips in there. I don't have anything to determine the logic of what this looks like. But as I click back and forth here, you can see I'm getting closer. I just said I'm getting closer. So let's hit Command S to save the file. Let's stop the movie.